There is a moment in this digital confrontation that no network ever truly replayed in its entirety, not because it wasn't historically important, but because it exposed a vulnerability too dangerous for the daily news cycle to process. Donald Trump walked onto a debate stage that night carrying 40 years of rehearsed confidence and a smile that dared anyone to challenge his absolute authority. But less than 90 seconds after the broadcast concluded, Bette Midler fired off a single digital message, asked 7 quiet words attached to a devastating photograph, and watched the most powerful man in America completely lose his ability to maintain his composure. The servers did not cut away. The digital atmosphere of that evening felt compressed, not warmer or colder, but thick with the kind of electric static that precedes a massive storm. The timeline was already flooded with manufactured political noise, the clinical, unforgiving glare of thousands of screens waiting for the final word. Bette Midler sat in a quiet room, miles away from the noise, her posture perfectly still, her eyes scanning the feed with the absolute control of a seasoned performer observing an amateur. The digital analysts watching the metrics could feel a sudden shift in the algorithm, sensing a massive deviation from the expected post-debate spin. There was no background warning, no gradual buildup of trending hashtags. The complete absence of a counter-narrative acted as a suffocating presence. Donald Trump's entrance onto the digital stage was an exercise in claiming absolute territory, his posts deliberate, heavy, and rapidly multiplying as he moved to dominate the trending topics. He paused just long enough between updates to aggressively adjust the narrative, a purely theatrical display of dominance, before planting his flag on the most visible corners of the internet. The moment he began posting, he spread his rhetoric wide, physically expanding his digital footprint to own every possible inch of his followers' screens. His words locked onto his critics with a flat, unwavering superiority, a tone designed to shrink any opposition within his own stronghold. He leaned immediately into a relentless barrage, delivering his opening line with a sharp, capitalized insult, heavily disguised as casual observation. "I was told I was dealing with serious political minds, but it looks like the dying Hollywood elite are still begging for relevance." He launched directly into a furious digital onslaught, stacking his attacks in a deliberate rhythm designed to overwhelm the feed with sheer volume. "Without me driving the conversation tonight, this entire platform wouldn't even register a blip on the cultural radar, and everyone typing right now knows it," he projected, his words echoing sharply across a million retweets. He pivoted seamlessly to a deeply personal dismissal, dedicating 3 consecutive posts to calling Midler a washed-up, overrated relic, desperately clinging to her phone because she lacked the intellect to understand real executive power. He claimed total authority over the environment, loudly reminding the silent digital room that he dictated global economies, ran the military, and certainly did not need a lecture from someone who spent their life singing show tunes. People log on because they want absolute winners, and quite frankly, there is nobody else on this timeline who even knows what winning looks like anymore, he concluded, effectively crossing his arms and daring anyone to respond. Through this entire 20-minute onslaught, Bette Midler stayed completely, terrifyingly silent. She simply watched his timeline implode, her lack of response an unreadable mask of absolute calculation. A prominent political strategist sitting in a Washington office nervously refreshed his screen, the collective tension of the internet becoming a physical weight. The silence stretched out, turning Trump's booming rhetoric into a hollow echo chamber of his own profound insecurity. Then Midler finally moved. She typed a single sentence, her digital voice dropping significantly lower, devoid of any theatrical capitalization. "Everything you just said was designed to fill the room with noise, but facts don't care about volume." The internet instantly went dead quiet, the timeline freezing in the hands of every single political observer. She attached a massive, high-resolution file that bypassed the usual grainy political memes to display a raw, unedited financial document from decades past, casually showing Trump begging a New York theater board for a bailout he later claimed he never needed. It was a moment his team had previously buried under layers of legal threats, but displayed here in stark, undeniable clarity, it landed like a physical blow. Midler did not use exclamation points. She simply asked a devastating question about how a man claiming absolute financial strength relies on the scaffolding of hidden bailouts to sustain it. Trump immediately fired back, loudly denying the context of the document and calling it doctored, fake news manufactured by a failing entertainer. Midler countered calmly, letting his denial hang in the dead air for a brutal 5-minute pause before she quietly dropped the next piece of evidence. A low murmur rippled through the political blogs, a collective realization that the legendary performer was not backing down a single inch. Midler uploaded a secondary file, moving with the deliberate precision of a surgeon operating on an exposed nerve. She posted a certified tax ledger matching the exact dates and amounts mentioned in the theater board document. Trump's timeline exploded, an instinctual, panicked grab to bury the documents under a flood of unrelated retweets. Midler stopped him effortlessly, pinning the ledger to the absolute top of her profile so it could not be moved. The tight focus of the entire internet caught the sudden, uncontrollable panic vibrating through Trump's subsequent heavily misspelled posts. The timeline shifted again, displaying a meticulously documented visual thread connecting the dates on the tax ledger to sudden, massive public bankruptcies he had previously blamed on market conditions. Trump tried to post over the visual evidence, his rhetoric rising in pitch as he dismissed the thread as a desperate partisan hoax. Midler slowed her posting cadence down even further, forcing the entire platform to absorb the sheer weight of the verified numbers. The tension on the platform was so thick it felt actively dangerous. A raw audio recording suddenly hit the feed, overriding the visual noise. It was a backstage capture of Trump from the era of the bailouts, his voice stripped of the microphone's equalization, explicitly ordering an accountant to destroy the physical ledger tying him to the theater board. The audience was physically hit by the recording, a collective, sharp intake of breath vibrating through millions of living rooms. Trump tweeted that the audio was illegally obtained and heavily spliced by deep state operatives. Midler did not argue. She simply posted the digital forensic verification from an independent federal acoustic lab, proving the file was entirely, unequivocally unaltered. The thread expanded, and two direct quotes from former insiders were added to the digital spotlight. The first was from a former financial liaison, a young man whose statement was entirely procedural, detailing exactly how he was ordered to route the bailout funds through 3 different LLCs to hide the trail. "I rehearsed walking away 6 times in the parking garage before I finally found the courage to quit," the liaison admitted in the linked interview, his words carrying a remarkable control. Trump aggressively attacked the young man's credibility, yelling in all caps that he was fired for gross incompetence and was simply looking for a quick book deal. The liaison's quote absorbed the verbal assault by standing perfectly still on the timeline, its silence magnifying Trump's absolute desperation. Then, the second witness quote was dropped. It was from a senior financial assistant, a woman forced to manage the shell accounts while under the suffocating weight of a strict multi-million-dollar non-disclosure agreement. Her written testimony was emotionally devastating, detailing the intense isolation and the profound personal cost of enforcing a financial lie that ruined the theater's original investors. Trump posted furiously, his digital face flushed dark red, shouting that she was a traitor betraying the loyalty of his empire. The assistant's quote stared directly back at him, laced with absolute titanium. "Silence doesn't protect anyone. It just makes the people who enforce it more comfortable." The internet did not cheer or scream. It broke. One major news outlet retweeted it. Another joined. Within seconds, the platform was consumed by a slow, deliberate wave of verified sharing, not for the legendary singer, but for the truth finally breathing in the open. The timeline split in half as users began displaying the domestic banking thread on the left and on the right, matching internal ledger emails sent from an encrypted offshore server detailing the exact strategy to silence the victim. The alignment was absolute and undeniable. Trump's denials shifted frantically from screaming fake news to yelling that the servers were illegally hacked by foreign enemies, a desperate pivot that exposed the sheer naked panic beneath his anger. His digital collapse unfolded across multiple, undeniable channels. His posting rhythm became erratic and heavily audible in its desperation, the timestamps showing rapid, shallow bursts of activity. The syntax of his posts, previously gripping a semblance of authority, began wiping frantically at the narrative, entirely abandoning standard grammar. His digital posture slumped inward, his broad claims stiffening and shrinking as he leaned away from the visual evidence dominating the trending topics. His focus darted aggressively around the platform, refusing to settle on Midler, the witnesses, or the raw documents, eventually going completely, terrifyingly blank for a full hour. His rhetoric clenched so tightly it snapped, working side to side in a silent, grinding panic. His verbal progression spiraled from confident denial to accusing Midler of an illegal ambush, dropping into a procedural complaint about the platform's rules, attempting a weak burst of bravado about his wealth, and finally landing in total, absolute silence. Midler posted one final time, her tone entirely neutral. This started with your words. It ends with your silence. And your silence is the loudest thing in this room. Trump opened his keyboard app, but no further words came out. The aftermath escaped the platform like a controlled detonation. Backstage at his residence, veteran aides stood completely frozen, watching the metrics in stunned disbelief. Trump's lead communications director was seen typing so frantically on his phone that autocorrect sent pure nonsense to the press pool for 3 straight messages. Trump stormed away from his devices without a single word to his detail, moving the way a man moves through a house he knows is already engulfed in flames. Within 8 minutes, the entire thread was archived by the Library of Congress. Within 20 minutes, the confrontation was segmented into 12 independent articles, each spreading at viral velocity. Cable news networks immediately cut into their primetime programming, their graphics departments frantically rebuilding the financial timeline with red arrows and annotations. Anchors read the tweets aloud, allowing Midler's thematic anchor word to sit on the screen for a full segment without adding their own commentary. Trump's counterattack failed to materialize, replaced by a devastating hours-long absence from the public eye. Yet, beneath his final frantic denial, users continued replying with screenshots of the exact banking ledgers, proving the scaffolding of his lies. The public shift was instantaneous. People were no longer debating the politics of the tweet. They were dissecting the psychology of a man whose entire financial facade shattered in real time. The assistant's quote about silence became a global caption, trending worldwide as the definitive summary of the night. The story does not end with a sudden confession. It burns slow, a fire that cannot be contained by late-night posts or legal threats, because a scaffolding built on bailouts only holds until someone finally refuses to look away. The people who subscribe to this channel don't come for drama. They come for the moments nobody else is willing to show. Join them, subscribe, turn on notifications. The next truth is already on the table.